Shalom, brothers and sisters. Giving all praises to the Most High in Christ, okay? Today's topic, we're going to deal with the 12 tribes of Israel, who they are and where they're located. My name is Nathaniel Alaga, and to my right, Banyamya. Okay, because there's a common misconception out here in the world today that the Lord destroyed the 12 tribes of Israel, that now you can be a spiritual Israelite because the 12 tribes have been destroyed. Now, is that true according to the Bible? Let's go to Romans chapter 11 and read verses 1 and 2. In the New Testament, for you hypocrites, okay?
I say then, hath the Most High cast away his people?
What's the subject? The Most High's people. God's people. Did he cast them away? Let's find out. Read.
The Most High forbid.
It says God forbid, meaning no. So here in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul makes it crystal clear that the Most High did not destroy the nation of Israel. They're not eradicated. They're not gone. Okay? Read on.
For I also am an Israelite.
Because Paul comes back and says, because I also am an Israelite. Read.
Of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin.
Read on.
The Most High have not cast away his people, which he foreknew.
So why is there all this confusion out in all the churches? Because you've all been teaching lies because you learned lies. The Most High has not cast away his people, which he foreknew. Meaning, the people he dealt with in the past, from the time of Moses, when Moses came out of Egypt with the children of Israel, those are the people the Most High foreknew. Okay, those are the same people he's dealing with today. Okay, so the Bible gives you the characteristics of the 12 tribes of Israel, okay, and where they're located today. And we're going to prove that. Okay, I'm going to read for Banyamya, and he's going to further expound on the tribes. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 49, and we're going to start at verse 1. Okay, you're going to listen to what Jacob tells his sons. He says, these things shall happen to you in the last days. Okay? But before we go to Genesis 49, let's go to 2nd Esdras, chapter 14. We're going to read verses 1 to 6. The book that we're reading is entitled The Apocrypha. This book was taken out by the so-called white man. It was originally included in the original King James Version 1611. But because it revealed too much about the end of times and who the wicked was, being the so-called white man, the so-called white man had it removed. Okay? So, a lot of you know that when Moses went up to Mount Sinai, he dealt with the Heavenly Father. And he was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. But a lot of you ignorantly believe that Moses was up there 40 days and 40 nights simply receiving 10 commandments. Now that's simple. How he's going to be up in a mountain for 40 days and 40 nights and only get 10 commandments? He was up there receiving much more than 10 commandments. There's over 600 commandments, and he also received something else. And Ezra records it. So let's read 2nd Esdras chapter 14, verses 1 to 6.
And it came to pass upon the third day, I sat under an oak, and behold, there came a voice out of a bush over against me, and said, Esdras, Esdras. And I said, Here am I, Lord. And I stood upon my feet. Then said he unto me, In the bush I did manifestly reveal myself unto Moses, and talk with him when my people serve in Egypt.
Right, so now the Most High is revealing something to Esdras. He's telling Esdras what he revealed to Moses. Read on.
And I sent him and led my people out of Egypt, and brought him up to the mount of Sinai, where I held him by me a long season.
Where I held him by me a long season. That was the 40 days and 40 nights. Read.
And told him many wondrous things.
And told Moses many wondrous things. Read.
And showed him the secrets of the times.
Showed him the secrets of the times. Please read that again.
And showed him the secrets of the times.
And showed him the secrets of the times. Remember, it was Moses that recorded the first 5 books of Genesis. The first 5 books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. The Most High revealed to Moses the whole creation. Okay, and Moses was recording it. He also showed him the end of times. That's what we're about to read about in Genesis 49. Read on.
And the end and commanded him, saying,
Wait, read it again.
and showed him the secrets of the times and the end.
And the end. So, yes, Moses knew about the end times, what was going to happen. Read.
And commanded him, saying, these words shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide.
Right. These words shalt thou declare, meaning made manifest openly, and certain things the Most High told Moses, make that a deep mystery, or don't write that part down. Okay? So now let's read about that in Genesis chapter 49. Because although these are the words of Jacob speaking to his 12 sons, it's the Most High telling Moses what Jacob said to his sons. All right? So Genesis 49, I'm gonna read it and then you expound on it. Genesis 49 and verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days.
So Jacob called his sons, all his sons together, and told his sons what was going to happen to his sons in the last days, what was going to happen to you as a tribe, as a nation of people, what was going to befall you, what was going to be the end times of the prophecy that was written in the Bible. Read on.
Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father.
So this is showing you Jacob was talking to his sons, the Israelites, not Africans, not Arabs, not Chinese, not Japanese, but the Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel. Read on.
Reuben, thou art my firstborn.
So stop. He's stressing right here. Reuben, thou art my firstborn. Reuben was the firstborn son of Jacob. Read on.
The beginning of my strength.
And Reuben was the beginning of his strength, because that's natural. Whenever you have a son, or your firstborn son, he's always the beginning of your strength. That's where all your glory, your posterity, your riches, and so forth goes to your son. Read on.
Excuse me. The excellency of dignity.
And the excellency of dignity. Now, Reuben, through our extensive research, I found that Reuben represents the so-called Seminole Indians scattered through the Florida Everglades, which are the Seminole Indians, so-called Seminole Indians. Read on. So it says, Reuben is the beginning of my strength and the excellency of dignity. The excellency of dignity is that the Seminole Indians carry themselves in a royal and honorable dignity. They refuse willingly to submit to the so-called white man's surrendering of signing peace treaties. They was forced and tricked into signing one peace treaty, but they did not sign into many peace treaties like the rest of their brothers, like the Sioux and the Cheyenne and these different tribes. So Reuben kept that dignity. Read on.
And the excellency of power.
And the excellency of power. Great warriors, great leaders. Read on.
May I say one thing? Also, in terms of that, the tribe of Reuben, okay, when you examine the way they dressed, they wore the mitri, like Bun Lemon has on his head. They were known for wearing the mitri. That was a holy dress code according to the Most High that he gave to the nation of Israel. For he ordained for them to wear the mitri, okay? And when the so-called white man was forcing the 5 civilized nations of the American Indians to enslave the American blacks, okay, it was the Seminoles that refused. The Seminoles had told the white man, yeah, okay, we'll enslave them, but what did they do? They made the American blacks kings and princes and had them marry the choice of their women, okay? Unlike the Choctaw and the Chickasaw who agreed and put the American black in hard slavery, just like the so-called white man. Because the white man had told them, if you do this, we will allocate you certain freedoms, okay? But Reuben, the Seminole Indians, they tricked the white man. They said, yeah, we'll do it. And what did they do? When the white man went back, they said, why do you have the blacks up sitting as kings and chiefs? Okay? That's what was going on. So the tribe of Reuben was the excellency of dignity, okay? And the excellency of power. So I'm going to read on.
Now, before you read on, I'd like to show you, like the brother said, about the Seminole Indians wearing turbans. It's in this book called The Black Indians by William Lawrence Katz. It's on our page 57. You have a group of Seminole Indians at delegation to Washington, D.C.
Okay, so I'm going to read on. I'm in verse 4 now. Unstable as water.
So when it says Reuben was unstable as water, what was happening, Reuben were like nomads. They traveled back and forth. They didn't stay in one stationary places. They constantly kept moving back and forth. Why? Because they were under the oppression of the so-called white man when he sent his military troops to go and fight against the Seminole Indians. Continue on.
Thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed. Then defiledest thou it. He went up to my couch.
So Jacob was telling Reuben also because what he did to his father, he defiled his father's bed by taking his concubine. He slept with his father's concubine. So Jacob told Reuben, thou shalt not excel in that category, and also he shall not excel when he came over to the Americas and when the white man, so-called white man, was going to conquer the Seminole Indians. They did not excel in fully defeating the so-called white man, because the so-called white man eventually took over all of the Americas, and the Seminole Indians became subject to the so-called white man way of life.
Right. One of the main guys was Andrew Jackson.
Right.
He was one of the generals in the army that helped but subdue the tribe of Reuben, the Seminole Indians, around 1829 to 1837, in that time area. Andrew Jackson was one of the key crackers, key Edomites to defeat, to bring down the Seminole Indians.
I'd like to read it. It says, this is on page 60. It says, before this conflict was over, the United States has fought its most costly Indian war, spending over 40 million and losing 1,500 soldiers and many civilians. They battled an enemy, one U.S. officer called bold, active, and armed, the black Seminoles, more desperate than the Indians. So he's showing about the character of the Seminole Indians. And one of the generals that fought against him was Thomas Jessup, General Jessup. And he was the main guy who fought against the Indians. I'd like to read a small commentary what he spoke about the Seminole Indians. He said here, in June 1787, on page 62, in June 1837, he admitted as much. We have at no former period in our history had to contend with so formidable an enemy. No Seminole proves false to his country, nor has a single instance ever occurred of a first-rate warrior having surrendered. So he's showing the excellence and the dignity of the Seminole Indians. They were skillful warriors. And when you read this whole book, it tells you about the wars they fought against the U.S. cavalry. And we like to show some pictures too of the Seminole Indians, some brief pictures. This book is called Native Americans. The name of the book is called Native Americans. And on page 22, 23, 24, and 25, we're going to show brief pictures of the Seminole Indians. Alright, Seminole Indians, page 23. Here's a group of Seminole women, Seminole Indians women, so-called. As you were showing the screen, the Seminole Indians. So we had to go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter and the 6th verse.
Right. This is the blessing wherewith Moses blessed the 12 tribes of Israel in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 33. So the understanding, so you just get the understanding. On how do we know who the 12 tribes are? You need 3 chapters primarily. You need Genesis chapter 49, you need Deuteronomy 33, and also Deuteronomy 28. We're mainly going to concentrate on Genesis 49 and Deuteronomy 33.
And one more book, the Apocrypha.
Right, and the Apocrypha. Okay, so Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 6. Let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few.
So like we're showing, this was Moses. Moses was prophesying to Reuben because Moses saw the beginning and the end of all the tribes. So when Moses said, let Reuben live and not die, and let his men be few, he was showing you the event, what was going to happen to the Seminole Indians when they came to the Americas, and they was going to be slaughtered and butchered by the so-called white man under his cavalry, his military. So he prophesied this event and said, let not Reuben die and his men be few. Why? Because the Most High had to preserve a remnant of his people. Like we read in Romans 11, the Most High has not cast away his people, which he foreknew. So we like to show, read one more scripture, 1 Chronicles, the 5th chapter and the 18th verse.
It says, the sons of Reuben and the Gadites.
Now the sons of Reuben, like we mentioned before, and the Gadites, which are brothers to the Seminole Indians, read on.
And half the tribe of Manasseh,
which are another brother to Seminole Reuben, read on.
Of valiant men.
See, they were valiant men, warriors, read on.
Men able to bear buckler and sword.
Men that could handle skill in weapons, any form of weapons. Bows, arrows, swords, javelin. Read on.
And to shoot with bow.
And to shoot with the bow. They were skillful in using the bow and arrows. Read on.
And skillful in war.
And they were skillful in war. And you had many different Seminole Indian chiefs that fought against the U.S. cavalry. So we like to show, there's more on that?
Were 440,703 score that went out to the war.
So we like to show in the book, in another book called Lost Tribes and Promised Land.
Right. In this book entitled Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, by Ronald Sanders, okay, this is a very important book. This is not a book that he just sat down and wrote up himself. The proof of that is in the bibliography. When you open it up, it tells you where he got many of the stories from. It says passages from Spanish explorers in the southern United States from 1528 to 1543. So what are we about to read? Records. These are not mythical stories, these are records. And we're going to go to page 363 that further discusses the tribe of Reuben. I'm actually going to start at page 364 and 365. You can read from 363 to 365 on your own. I'm going to sum it up briefly. There's a white man by the name of Montesinos. Okay, he was a Marrano, meaning he was a converted Jew. Okay, a white man that converted to Judaism. And he was thinking about the native Indians. Okay, and this is what he says. It says, those Indians, he told himself, they are Hebrews. Okay? Eventually, so what happened here, I'm just going to skip all the way down. He goes out to find out about the Indians. He's in South America. This is before they had fully migrated up to the southern coast of the Americas. He gets in a canoe. He goes over to where the Indians are, and this is the situation as follows. Eventually, a canoe appeared, bearing 3 men and a woman, all of them Indians, to the place where Francisco, which is the Indian guide, and Montesinos, the white man, were standing at the water's edge. The woman got off and spoke to Francisco in an Indian tongue that Montesinos could not understand, Hebrew, although he could perceive that he was being identified in the conversation. She then turned to her male companions to explain the situation. Upon hearing her words, they arose, went over to Montesinos, and said to his utter astonishment, I'm going to read it just as they have it. Shema Yisroel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Ehud, which is Yiddish. What they really said is Shema Yasha'Allah Yahweh Allahayanawa Yahweh Ahad. Ahad, meaning, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. They had recited in Hebrew the fundamental credo of Judaism. They told him that they were themselves of the tribe of Reuben, and that the tribe of Joseph lived on an island nearby. The tribe of Joseph, meaning Manasseh and Ephraim, okay, which are Manasseh being the Cubans and Cuban Indians, and Ephraim, who are the so-called Puerto Ricans. Right, the Tainos and the Boricuas. Okay, I'm going to read on. Francisco told Montesinos all he knew about them from his own traditions. His ancestors, to their eternal shame, had indeed made war on them and persecuted them. Only the sorcerers of his tribe had perceived that they were a special people and had given warning that they should be left alone. The God of these children of Israel is the true God. They had said, and everything inscribed on their tablets is true. Now I'm going to pause here, and everything inscribed on their tablets is true. Because the white man has taught throughout America that the so-called Indians had an oral tradition. The records here says, and everything inscribed on their tablets is true, meaning they had records here. At the end of days, they will be lords of all the nations of the earth. I'm going to read that again. I like that. At the end of days, they, meaning the tribe of Reuben and the other 12 tribes, will be lords of all the nations of the earth. One nation will come bringing many things to this land, meaning Judah, Benjamin, Levi hadn't yet been brought over and enslaved yet. And after we have all been provided for through the knowledge of the Most High, these children of Israel will go forth from where they now are and reign over all the earth as they once did. With this final flourish, Montesinos had turned his tale of the lost tribes into a bit of propaganda. Then it goes on, blah, 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 blah.
Right, he started turning the story into a myth and a fairy tale.
Right.
That the Indians over in the what they call a New World was savages. So this is the lies of the so-called white man to spread his propaganda. So the next tribe would be Simeon and Levi. Simeon represents the Dominicans of Indian descent, and Levi, which are the so-called Haitians that lives on the island of Haiti. So we begin at Genesis, the 49th chapter and the 5th verse.
Simeon and Levi are brethren.
So what Jacob is saying, he says Simeon and Levi are brethren. Meaning when they said they are brethren, they share the same island known as Hispaniola, which is one side you have the Dominican Republic, and the other side you have Haiti. So it says Simeon and Levi are brethren. All the tribes are brethren, but he's stressing the point that Simeon and Levi, because these two brothers share one island that was known as Hispaniola, but later was divided into Santo Domingo and Haiti. Read on.
Instruments of cruelty are in their habitation.
And it says instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. The instrument of cruelty that's in their habitation is the witchcraft, which they call voodoo, that's used among the Haitians and the Santo Domingans. So that's the instrument of cruelty that's in the island. That's the main instrument that they use against their own people. And it was also used against the French when the Haitians fought against the French. But looking at today, our people use this witchcraft amongst their own people, which is known as voodoo. All right?
Right. Can I show them a few clips of it? In this book here entitled Haiti, Feeding the Spirit, we're going to show you a few clips on the voodoo. Okay, as brought out in Haiti, they call it voodoo. In the Dominican Republic, you call it brujeria. Okay, which is evil magic. So, as you can see for yourself, you see the various clips on the Haitians doing their witchcraft. The same thing in the Dominican Republic. So now I'm going to read on to verse 6. O my soul, come not thou into their secret.
So what Jacob was saying, O my soul, come not thou into their secret. He didn't want his righteous spirit that he has to go into what they was going to deal with, which was a witchcraft, because that witchcraft was going to turn to the left-hand side, to negative. It wasn't going to be used in the positive. Read on.
Unto their assembly, mine honor, be not thou united.
So the assemblies they gather when they have these witchcraft together, when they work in these assemblies of witchcraft amongst the witch doctors and the mass of the people. Read on. Read the part again. It says, unto the assembly my honor.
Unto the assembly, mine honor, be not thou united.
So he said, for this, they were not going to be united. That's why Haiti and Santo Domingo is divided. So he didn't want them to be united in that purpose, because if they came together, it would be very destructive. So he said, be thou not united. Read on.
All right, let me say one thing. And when they're on that island of Hispaniola, the Haitians are speaking French, the Dominicans are speaking Spanish. They're divided in language, okay, and culture.
Right.
Okay, they hate each other. They dislike one another on the same island. That shows you that the Bible is true. The Most High knows exactly what he's saying. I'm going to read on. For in their anger, they slew a man.
So this goes back in the past, when we were back in the land of Israel. What happened, some men had raped their sister, Dinah. So they told Israel, okay, you can marry my sister. So they said, for you to marry my sister, you must become circumcised. So when these men became circumcised and they were all sore and sitting back, they went and slew all the men. They slew all these African men that raped their sister. Read on.
I'm going to read on. And in their self-will, they dig down a wall.
So I mean, destroy a whole city of Africans when they were back in the land of Israel. And their father Jacob was afraid of what they have done. Read on.
Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce.
He said, cursed be their anger, because it was fierce. And their anger today is still fierce towards their own people. Continue on.
And their wrath, for it was cruel.
And they're still cruel today too. Read on.
I will divide them in Jacob.
So Jacob said, according to the prophecy that the Most High was going to do, he was going to divide them in Jacob. That's why he's divided by Santo Domingo and the island of Haiti. Read on.
And scatter them in Israel.
And we were scattered. How were we scattered? When we were brought to this part of the world in slavery, on the slave ships.
Right. Also, that goes when the Most High, when the Levites was set up, they were scattered throughout all Israel. Also, they didn't have an inheritance of land.
Right, the priests.
Right.
Because they were the priests of the nation of Israel.
Right. That story that he brought, that Banyama had mentioned concerning Dinah and Simeon and Levi, that's a terrible story. Because, as he brought out, when that African prince had slept with their sister, Simeon and Levi wanted revenge. Okay, and they said, all right, as he said, you want to marry our sister? All your village has to get circumcised. So Simeon and Levi waited till the soreness set in. Then they struck and they attacked.
With the swords.
Right. And that shows you Simeon and Levi, they had power. They wasn't no weak guys. These dudes was terrible and powerful. And in this book entitled Black Indians by William Lauren Katz, I'm going to go to page 33 in this book. And it talks about a similar situation with Simeon and Levi, meaning the Haitians and the Dominicans. I'm going to go to it real quick.
And then it's saying too, back in Israel, they used swords. Back in the island of Haiti, they used what you call a machete, or a machete. The same thing. So it's the same instrument, weapons of war that they use to fight against their enemies or against their own people.
Right. Check this out. I'm on page 33. In 1522, Europeans in the Americas first learned that slavery did not easily lead to enormous wealth. On Christmas Day, African and Indian, meaning it's referring to the Haitians and the Indians of Santo Domingo, but they put African here. Slaves on a plantation owned by Diego Columbus rolled and murdered their masters and overseers. Nearby Native Americans joined the rebels because they had brought Native American Indians, the tribe of Gad, over to serve slavery in Santo Domingo. The beautiful island of Santo Domingo shook with the first recorded slave rebellion in the New World. The conspiracy had spread across the sprawling sugar plantations in the weeks before Christmas. Patiently waiting, the plotters waited until Christmas Day, when the planters and their families would be bloated with food, soaked with liquor, and too weak or sleepy to offer much resistance. Then they struck, plunging into the night to kill whites and find freedom. So that's the same similar story that happened in the Bible.
With Simeon and Levi.
Right.
And then going back to the history book called Slavery, in this book it tells you the word Haiti that was called by the native Indians that occupied that land before the Negro slaves were brought there. It tells you in this book that Columbus cruising to the coast of Cuba, he cast anchor off an island that the natives called Haiti, meaning mountainous country. So the word Haiti came from the Indians, meaning a mountainous country. But when the French got there, they call it hell, high ground, because of the hell that they caught from the Haitians when they rebelled against the slave masters. So it was the French that were oppressing the Haitians. So there was a great leader that rose up. His name was Toussaint. And this is what it says on Toussaint. Only 7 months later, Napoleon gave up his attempt to force Haiti back into slavery because Napoleon hated black people. He was a staunch hater of black people. And it says, Toussaint had won after all. The French withdrew, leaving 60,000 of their soldiers and sailors dead on the island. On the last day of 1803, Haiti formally proclaimed its independence, so-called independence, from the hardcore bondage of the French. So what is it showing you? That the French caught much hell under the Haitians when they rebelled. And the so-called Haitians were the first to proclaim independence in the so-called Western world.
Right. The next thing, when you go to the libraries, there's a book entitled Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese Discoveries by Dr. M. Kayserling. If the cameraman could get close up on this. This is a reference book. You're not going to be able to take the book out, but I want to read a few references from page 95 on, okay? Proving that the Indians of the Dominican Republic in Cuba, they are Israelites. It says this: in Cuba, Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic, and the other islands which he discovered, Columbus found natives who had their caciques, meaning kings, and their own language and traditions. To what race did these aborigines of America belong? Several writers have asserted and have displayed much learning in attempting to prove that the aborigines were descendants of the Jews. This result was reached already in the 16th century by the Spanish clergyman Roldan. His arguments were derived from an unpublished manuscript which he discovered in the library of San Pablo in Seville. Okay, let me jump down real quick. I'm going to go to page 98. Of more interest than the mode of migration is the question whether any analogies in language, in traditions, in religious conceptions, or in religious ceremonies justify the acceptance of this ethnological theory, which it does. As you stick around, we're going to show you the language of the Indians throughout the islands. Roldan's chief argument in support of his view is the language of the Indians in Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Jamaica, and the adjoining islands. He contends that it has many resemblances to Hebrew. It was Hebrew, and we're going to prove it. In fact, he even calls it corrupted Hebrew, because they had picked up other languages from the white men, different words, and inserted it in. He asserts that such names as Cuba and Haiti are Hebrew, and that they were first applied by the earliest caciques, meaning kings, the chiefs or the leaders, who discovered and peopled the island. Okay, the names of rivers and the persons in use among the natives are derived from the Hebrews. I'm going to go to page 99. They also sacrificed first fruits on high mountains and under shady trees. They sacrificed first fruits because that was a high holy day, called first fruits, set up and ordained by the Most High in Leviticus 23rd chapter. They had temples and carried a holy ark before them in time of war. Just like the Israelites did, because they are the Israelites. They were also, like the 10 tribes, inclined to idol worship. Okay, so this is a book you can go to the library and examine for yourself in the reference libraries. Okay, so now let's go back to the scriptures. Deuteronomy 33 and verse 8. It says this: And of Levi he said, let thy Thummim and thy Urim be with the Holy One.
Now, when it says, and of Levi, he said, let the Thummim and Urim be with thy Holy One, because Levi were the priests of the nation of Israel. Aaron, Moses' brother, and his sons became the high priest of the nation. The high priests who were Eleazar's son, which was Moses' brother, his sons became the successive high priests. So the Levites, certain groups of the Levites, you had high priests, you had priests, and you had certain section of the Levites. Now the sons of Eleazar were the one that wore the Thummim and the Urim. Now the Thummim and the Urim were like balls that gave up illumination, something like crystal balls. And the Most High would speak to the priests, and he would show them certain events that would take place concerning the nation and concerning the priests. Now, and it says, and of Levi he said, let the Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, which was his priest. Now the Holy One, that's dwelling with our people now, is not the righteous spirit of the Most High. What they're dealing with is a witchcraft and with Satan, because like I said, the Haitians were the priests of the nations. And it says, let the Thummim and thy Urim be with thy Holy One, whom thou didst prove at Massa. So who was at Massa with Moses? It was the Levites and the rest of the Israelites that provoked Moses, and the priests that were Moses at Massa. Because Moses struck the rock to give them water. And it's just going to explain for him, with whom thou didst strive at the waters of Meribah. So this part, when he said about the Thummim and the Urim, is that you know that the priests used the Thummim and Urim, which were like crystal balls that gave off a certain illumination to let the priest know what the Most High was going to relate to his high priest and so forth. And it says, the 9th verse, read on.
Who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren.
So this is speaking about Levi. When it came to pass, when it was asked, when Joseph was sold in Egypt, it was asked of Levi, where was his brother? And Levi said, who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did he acknowledge his brethren. Now, when you look at it today, the Haitians today don't acknowledge the so-called Black Americans or the West Indians. They merely keep to themselves, amongst themselves. They don't associate. They will speak to you, but the close, as far as dealing association is mainly among their own people. They do not acknowledge their brethren. Continue on.
Right. One more thing, one more aspect to that. When it says, who said unto his father and to his mother, I have not seen him, neither did acknowledge all his brethren, nor knew his own children, for they have observed thy word, goes back to Exodus 32 also, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai, okay, and the children of Israel were in all manner of wickedness and fornication. And the Most High said, who is on the Lord's side, let him come here. And the Levites came to Moses. And he said, let every Levite take his sword and slay the wicked of Israel. And it says the Levites didn't care if it was their mother, their father, or their children. They just slaughtered them, put them to death. Okay, so I'm going to read on now in verse 10. They shall teach Jacob thy judgments, and Israel thy law.
Right, so that was the job of the Levites, to teach the law. They were the lawgivers of the law also, to teach Israel the laws of the Most High, and so forth. That was the job of the priest, to do the sacrificing, to burn the incense in the temple, and it goes on and on. That was their job, to do the service of the Most High strictly. Read on.
They shall put incense before thee, and whole burnt sacrifice upon thine altar.
So their job was to burn the incense, right? The incense in the temple, sacrifice the animals for the sins of the people and for themselves, and for the atonement of the sins of the entire nation. Continue on, it says, read on. So we like to go to Malachi.
Right.
Malachi, what chapter?
We're going to go to Malachi chapter 2, and what we're going to read is verses 1, 3, 8, and 9, so we can just get through it briefly. Malachi chapter 2, verse 1. And now, O ye priests, this commandment is for you. Okay, let me jump to verse 3. Behold, I will corrupt your seed and spread dung upon your faces.
Now this happened to the Levites. When this happened? When we were brought here in slavery, the Haitians. Why? They are no more priests to the Most High, because what are they dealing with now? Witchcraft, evil, all sorts of evil and madness. As an entire nation, I should put it, we're dealing with wickedness and evil. So now, instead of doing righteousness as doing the burn the incense and the righteous oil of the Most High, we're doing the evil sacrifices. Read on.
Right, let me show them a photo of that from this book here. Okay, it shows them practicing their voodoo and spreading dung upon their faces. So this was prophetic. All right. So let me read on. Even the dung of your solemn feast, and one shall take you away with it. Okay. So now let's jump down to verses 8 and 9.
And now the solemn feast that they're keeping in Haiti and those islands is Easter and what? Easter and Christmas. Some of them do. If they're in the Roman Catholic Church, they either celebrate all the pagan customs of the Roman Catholic Church. That's the solemn feast that they're keeping.
Right. Verse 8. But ye are departed out of the way.
See? So the whole nation, but this was referring particularly to the Levites, the priests. They have went out of the Most High's way, which is his righteous order. Continue on.
Ye have caused many to stumble at the law. Ye have corrupted the covenant of Levi, saith the Lord of hosts.
And that's what they did. Corrupted the covenant by doing what? Bringing in false sacrifices, by going to pagan customs, by following the ways of the different nations, the Africans. Continue on.
Verse 9. Therefore have I also made you contemptible and base before all the people.
And look at it. Haiti is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. It's the poorest. And they're living in the most deplorable state. Continue on.
According as ye have not kept my ways, but have been partial in the law. Right, let me say this about that. When the Most High said he made Levi contemptible and base before all the people, meaning before all Israel. When you mistakenly if you ask a black guy, are you Haitian? You know how insulted they get. Haitian? Oh, I ain't no Haitian. If you ask any of our people, they get that's like the greatest insult to call them a Haitian, because they've been reduced to being contemptible and base before all the people. And with many Dominicans, the biggest joke that one of their jokes is to call another person, they say, "Tu eres un haitiano," meaning you are a Haitian. And they all think, that's like a joke to them, because they consider the Levites, which are the Haitians, the most base of all people.
And at one time, they were the most noblest of all. The priests, the Haitian priests, were noble men. The Most High tells you how has the fine gold become dim. The priests were royal men. The priests dealt with purity, all pure stuff. None was unclean or base could come around the priest. Not even a stranger could touch the food that belongs to the priest. Everything around the priest had to be pure, sanctified, and holy. The priest could not even have a woman that had a husband before. She had to have been a virgin. So it's showing that the high level that we were once on to the level that we have been brought down to.
Right. So now let's go back to Deuteronomy 33 and verse 11 to finish up on Levi. It says, bless the Lord. Bless, Lord, his substance, and accept the work of his hands. Smite through the loins of them that rise against him.
So what was this? This was also prophecy showing you whoever's going to rise up against the Haitians, like the French, the Most High was going to give them that power to fight against their enemies. Reading on.
And of them that hate him, that they rise not again.
I like to show in this book called Slavery. It's on page 119. In the caption it says, refused freedom by the French National Assembly. So the French National Assembly wanted to give the Haitians freedom under their way of doing it. But the Haitians rebelled against that. They said Haiti's slaves revolted in August 1791, burning down plantations and massacring whites. They massacred white people. And it says Toussaint organized the slaves into a revolutionary army that could defeat the European troops. So this is also going back to this prophecy in this chapter, right in this verse right here, about the Haitians.
Right, and that's going to go on a greater scale in these last days. The Most High is going to destroy everyone that comes up against them, that they rise not again. Because the white man's not going to rise again, according to this prophecy. Ever! Ever!
The next tribe is Judah, who is known today as the so-called Black Americans, or some people say Afro-Americans. But these are natural names, or Negroes, which y'all make mockery of my Negroes. So you prefer, some people prefer the term Afro-Americans, but the true nationality is Judah.
Right. Can we just get, since you said that, in Deuteronomy 20, I just got to get to, since Benjamin brought that up, Deuteronomy 28 and 37, it says this. This is mainly for Judah. Listen. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither the Lord shall send thee. Because as he said, you call colored, some of you call it Afro-American, African-American, Blacks American, Nubians now. So that's what I mean being called a byword, a proverb and a byword. Like there was a famous proverb, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catch a nigga by the toe, if he holler, let him go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, so then you got all these bywords. You call every 10 years, the American, what's termed American black, changes their nationality. So that's Bible prophecy on the tribe of Judah. So now, let's go to Genesis 49 and verse 8. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise.
Now it says Judah, particularly speaking of the so-called Black Americans. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise, meaning the rest of the tribes is going to acknowledge Judah for bringing forth the truth and teaching and showing that we are the Israelites, according to the Bible. Continuing.
Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies.
Now when it says thy hand shall be in the neck of thy enemies, it's referring to the so-called Black Americans are situated in the most prominent situation of all the tribes, in the top leading position where they have the advantage to take hold of this system and bring this man down. So actually their hand is up in the neck of the so-called white man's system, whether it's his political system, his military system, his economical system. They're up in the top elite of the system where they have the position more advantage of the system than the rest of the tribes of Israel. So that's what it's talking about. When you look around, you see for yourself in the politics, in the Congress, in the sports world, in the entertainment world, in the economical field, you have a lot of so-called Black Americans in that position, because that's the prophecy that will fit Judah. Continue on.
Right. Let me say this, add this one thing. Also, when it says the neck of me, letting you know that Judah would be located primarily in North America.
Top kingdom.
The top kingdom. Okay, so let me read on. It says, thy father's children shall bow down before thee.
Right, so their father's children, which is the rest of the tribes, is going to acknowledge and see that Judah is the head tribe that the Most High set up. That's the tribe the Most High set up to be the head and to show Israel and to guide and teach Israel. Continue on.
And to prove that statement, briefly, let's go to Zechariah 12 and 7. It says, the Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah.
So
Elaborate.
Okay, so the Most High is the prophecy is letting us know that Judah would be exalted first. And Judah would be the top tribe who would give the knowledge to the rest of the tribes. So that way the other tribes would not exalt themselves against Judah. Because right now in this system, the tribes seem to be against Judah. They're always putting the tribe of Judah down. Oh, those blacks don't like to work. Oh, they're lazy. They're Yankee boys. They're on welfare. They ain't this, they ain't that.
They've been here so long and they haven't achieved nothing.
Right. So the Most High is through prophecy, letting us know that Judah would be lifted up first. And Judah would be the one to gather the tribes, to spread the knowledge out. Okay? So let's go back to Genesis 49,
The ninth verse.
9th verse. Judah is a lion's whelp.
So the Most High has given the characteristics of Judah. Judah is a lion's whelp, a young, frisky, courageous lion. Judah was like this back in the 60s when they started standing up for the civil rights, for black power, the black movement, the different black groups, the Black Panthers, the freedom fighters. I'm going on. Continue.
From the prey, my son, thou art gone up.
So from the prey, my son, the prey is the Bible, the knowledge of the Bible. Judah has gone away from the truth of the Bible, teaching that they're the Israelites, and they have gone into what? More into the political system. They have gone more into Africanism, Egyptology, and all the different philosophies of this system and of the different nations. Read on.
He stooped down.
Now when it said he stooped down, like a lion when he stoops and he's getting prepared, read on.
He couched as a lion.
So he couched as a lion, so he was getting ready to prance and attack the enemy. When was this done? In the 60s, under the different Black Panthers. Snake was about the revolutionary against the white man oppressing them, in the different riots and so forth. All this was a time when, in the 60s, when the blacks here in America was rebelling against the system because of their oppression against their people. Read on.
And as an old lion.
So that as an old lion, now in the 90s, now he's more comfortable. He's talking about the political, it's more of an economical trend than more of a revolutionary trend. Read on. So now he's more of in a complacent state. Read on.
Right, so let me say this. So back then, it looked like the American blacks, the tribe of Judah, was going to take down their enemy, like a lion does.
Right.
Waiting, right, crouched like he was going to attack. But then what they do? They went, just rolled over.
After King
And
David.
went to sleep and got into politics and all this other, man. Y'all just went to sleep.
So when the blacks in America went to sleep, they didn't just go to sleep on their own. Let's stress this point real good. This was a diabolical, demonic plot by the Illuminati, the FBI, the CIA, and the politicians to deliberately and conspiratorially destroy the blacks in America by using what? Drugs. By using infiltration. The FBI, money, bribery, using different black groups to fight against themselves to infiltrate and destroy black organizations. So let you know, they didn't just fall asleep. This was like a systematically set up to destroy the black organization. So after all of the destruction of the blacks, Martin Luther King dying and all the groups fell apart by infiltration and bribery and all different tactics, then Jake fell asleep. Now when it came to the 90s now, they have become more complacent. It's all about economical gain, political gain. It's no more about revolution against the system. So continue.
Who shall rouse him up?
So who's going to rouse him up? The Most High, by using Christ. And thirdly, by the prophecies and the events taking place in the Bible. All the world events that's taking place around America and throughout the world. Continue.
The scepter shall not depart from Judah.
And it said the scepter shall not depart from Judah. The scepter is a royal staff used by kings. So the rulership shall not depart from Judah. Read on.
Nor a lawgiver from between his feet.
Nor a lawgiver between his feet, meaning the rulership, a leader of the nation. Read on.
Until Shiloh come.
Until Shiloh, which represents Jesus Christ the Messiah. So up until the time that Christ came, when the Romans were ruling over Jerusalem, under the leadership of the Pharisees, and the different sects of the Israelites, they had that rulership until it was taken from them when Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. Read it on.
And unto him shall the gathering of the people be.
So unto Christ, which is the leader of the nation of Israel, who also came up in the tribe of Judah, and also unto Judah shall the gathering of the people be. That's going to teach the truth of the Bible, which is going to be passed on to the rest of the tribes of Israel. Read on.
binding his foal unto the vine.
Now they're speaking about the Messiah, Jesus Christ. It said, bind his foal unto the vine. Read on.
And his ass's colt unto the choice
So
vine.
they're speaking about Christ when he came right into Jerusalem and an ass. This was fulfilled when he did that. Read on.
He washed his garment